March the 11th. Are there any additions to the agenda from staff?
Your Worship, there was some correspondence handed out for items on the agenda for this evening.
Thank you. That's been received by all of council, I believe.
And there was an item under 11.6 under correspondence as well.
Right, a letter from June Stewart.
Yes.
So council under 11.6, June Stewart's letter to be considered at that time. Okay, is there any additions from council? Seeing none? Any disclosure of interest, council? All right, we'll go to confirmation of minutes. Regular council meeting minutes of February the 25th, 2019. We have a motion.
Moved by Councillor Flynn, seconded by Councillor Lindgren, that the regular council meeting minutes of February 25th, 2019 be adopted as circulated.
Thank you. Is there any questions or business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. 6.1 committee reports, Development and Planning Services Committee meeting minutes of March the 4th, 2019. We have a motion.
Moved by Councillor Cannon, seconded by Councillor Lavery, that the Development and Planning Services Committee meeting minutes of March 4, 2019 be received as information.
Is there any questions from Councillor? Councillor Flynn?
Thank you, Your Worship. And Councillor Cannon reminded me, and these minutes reminded me, that I did step out for the Brown presentation that is in the public hearing session tonight. So I will declare a conflict for that.
Okay, and that's this evening.
That's this evening. I was going to declare it this evening, but...
no trouble, and I think probably a good idea for you to do that again this evening.
Yep.
Thank you for the reminder. Any other questions or business arising? All those in favor? Thank you. 6.2 Downtown Parking Commission meeting minutes of February the 26th, 2019. We have a motion.
Moved by Councillor Eliason, seconded by Councillor Wallace-Richmond, that the Downtown Parking Commission meeting minutes of February 26, 2019 be received as information.
Any business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor? Thank you. 6.3 Community Heritage Commission meeting minutes of January the 18th, 2019. We have a motion.
Moved by Councillor Cannon, seconded by Councillor Lindgren, that the Community Heritage Commission meeting minutes of January 18, 2019 be received as information.
Is there any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none, all in favor? Thank you. We'll move on to section 7, Columbia-Shuswap Regional District Update, Board in Brief. CSRD reps, would you like to comment on these? Okay, we've all had a chance to look at them, so I don't see any comments. We'll move on to section 8, staff reports. Director of Corporate Services, appointment of David Ganella to Shuswap Tourism Board. We have a motion on the screen. Could I have a mover? Councillor Cannon, seconder Councillor Eliason. Any discussion around that motion? Councillor Cannon?
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd just add that I'm on the Shuswap Tourism Board, newly appointed rep on there, and it was brought to my attention before I got on the board that David Ganella would be a good fit for the board, so this is just process, and I think that he would be a good appointment to the board as well.
Thank you, Councillor Cannon. Any other comments? All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you. 8.2, Director of Engineering and Public Works Project Award, 5th Avenue Southwest Realignment. There's a motion on the screen. Could I ask for a mover and a seconder? Councillor Eliason, second. Councillor Lindgren. I'll ask the Director of Engineering and Public Works to talk to us about this report.
Thank you, Your Worship. So this is in regards to 5th Avenue Southwest and Christensen Road. It's a road that we've been having some issues with sloughing, and so we've designed a new realignment of the road to get it away from the slough bank. And we put this work out to tender on February 1st, and we received 8 submissions for this tender, which was quite surprising, and happy to see all the submissions. And we're looking for the award to go to Doug Webb in accordance with his tender submission.
Thank you. Council, do you have any questions around this? Okay, could I just ask, I know that, first of all, it's great news that we've got 8 people bidding on a city tender. I see there's not a date provided for construction start. Is that a concern for staff at all?
Your worship, the date will potentially start when we have spring freshet.
Okay, that's why it's not
Yeah.
down there.
Yeah.
I understand. Okay, thank you for that explanation. Any other questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Passed unanimously, thank you. We'll move to 8.3, Director of Engineering and Public Works, purchase recommendation for replacement of unit number 85 wide area mower. We have the motion on the screen. Can I have a mover and a seconder? Councillor Eliason, second Councillor Wallace-Richmond. Can I have the administrator read the motion, please?
Moved by Council Eliason, seconded by Council Wallace-Richmond, that council approve the purchase of unit number 85 wide area mower replacement from Rollins Machinery for the quoted price of $127,509.40, including taxes.
Thank you. Director of Engineering and Public Works.
Thank you, Worship. This is fairly straightforward. It was a bid that went out for the replacement of our wide area mower. We received 2 submissions from BC Bid, and we're looking to award this one to Rawlings Machine Limited for the price of $127,590.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from council? Okay, I see it cuts a 16-foot swath, so that's a pretty wide mower. All right, all those in favor of the motion? Thank you. Item 8.4, Director of Engineering and Public Works, new pump purchase, Mosquito Park Lift Station. There's a proposed motion on the screen. Could I have a mover and seconder? Councillor Eliason, Councillor Cannon second. Could I have the administrator read the motion, please?
Moved by Councillor Eliason, seconded by Councillor Cannon, that council approve the purchase of a new 45 horsepower sewage pump for the Mosquito Park Lift Station from Electric Motors and Pump Service Limited for the quoted price of $46,847 plus taxes, and that the city's purchasing policy be waived in procurement of same.
Thank you. Director of Engineering and Public Works.
Thank you, Worship. So this is in regard to the Mosquito Lift Station. It's a large lift station which services the entire area of Canoe, and we're looking at replacing one of our flight pumps, and the EMPS is the only supplier of flight in this area, and we're looking for a sole source award for this.
Thank you. Questions from council? Just so the gallery is aware, and the youth council, the second part of this motion asks that we waive the procurement process and that we sole source, which means we actually go to one business and say we want to buy that pump. And the reason we do that in this situation is they're the only people that make that pump. Sometimes we do it if they've done a whole bunch of work on one particular project and they're the ones that know all about it. Otherwise, we send out an RFP and get bids from everyone, as we did on one of the earlier items. That's how that works. Any other comments on this motion? All those in favor? Thank you. We'll go to section 11. Informational correspondence. The items are up on the screen, council. If you wish to speak to any of them, please indicate. Start with Councillor Eliason.
Item 8, I would make a motion to direct staff to work with the Wild Souls running folks to ensure this event happens. Looking for a seconder.
Okay, seconder Councillor Cannon.
It's been successful in the past. It's a great way to get our community active, and the staff is familiar with dealing with them, and they're amenable. So,
Thank you. Any comments from staff on that item? Okay. Any comments from other councillors on that item? All those in favor? Thank you. Do you have any other items, Councillor Lassen?
not at this time. Other than I'll speak to the building permits. May as well. Let's go for it. Number 1. Strong start. Mostly buoyed right now by a large commercial and institutional. If you take that out, in fact, our housing starts for single-family units are down. So we often see waves of residential growth and commercial growth. Looks this year like we're at a commercial institutional growth rather than a focus on residential. I think what has a lot to do with the lack of starts this year is that it's been really cold in February, and I know that the mayor took off and things went sideways for a couple of weeks and got really cold, and we still haven't got back up on our feet, so it's good to see you back. That is all.
Thank you, Councillor Eliason. And interesting, looking at that report, if you look at the right-hand column under number 11, new industrial, we have one new industrial project, which is value has $3 million. We expect a second one over time. What often happens is we get the residential first, and then it's followed by industrial and commercial. So this is good news. Any other items that council wishes to speak of? If not, I will speak to a couple. Councillor Lavery, thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. 12, 13, and 14, starting off in that order.
Okay.
Just to report back, the Fraser Basin Council had the hosted the Shuswap Trails Roundtable. It was very successful. Partner groups, stakeholders, a wide variety of discussion, reporting back on initiatives that stakeholders have started or hope to start, and ending up with breaking out into sections of zones of interest. So the Salmon Arm Bay, Salmon Arm area had a number of stakeholders sitting there talking about the future. The information is in our correspondence, but a very positive approach, and the collaboration that's involved with planning and reporting back is huge. So this is on a roll, and there's no date for the next one, but certainly encourage anyone on council to go to the next one and when it crops up.
Great, thank you, Councillor Lavery, for attending that for us. You'd like to talk about item 13?
Item 13 is a letter from Silga. We had kind of talked about this before, about being open to hosting Silga in the 2021 year for the AGM and convention, and I would move that we formally respond to them and saying that, as we've indicated, that we'd be interested in hosting.
Seconder, Councillor Wallace-Richmond, thank you. Any discussion around that motion? Councillor Lyson, you'd like to speak to that motion? I'll just skip Councillor Flynn over you, and then I'll come back if you press your button again, Councillor Flynn. Councillor Lyson.
Yeah, I've been heavily involved with Silga for the past forever, and I know the value of this conference. I think it'll be a good thing for our community to host, not only to focus on what we're doing really well in Salmon Arm, but it's a shoulder season tourism event. We have anywhere between 175 and 225 people attend, which will be a great way to fill up hotel rooms at the end of April. And we will have also another hotel option open at that time for Salmon Arms. So I think that it'll bring positive economic benefits, but also allow us to show off our best practices and really show off what the city of Salmon Arm has to offer. So good business boost in the spring for the community.
Thank you, Councillor Lyson. Councillor Flynn, did you want to talk to that motion? Councillor Wallace-Richmond, did you want to talk to that motion? Councillor Lavery, did you want to talk to that motion?
Yeah, I'll just mention that it's a great opportunity. And most staff support and support from council will be required to help pull this off heading into it, but it's something we can do and do well, so look forward to it.
Great, thank you very much for the motion. All those in favor? Okay, you're all on the committee.
So
Item
excited.
13, Councillor Lavery. I'll go to Councillor Lavery. Go ahead, Councillor Flynn, press again. And Councillor Walsh-Rich can press again. Councillor Lavery, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Worship. So this is an annual report that we've been getting the last 4 years from BC Hydro from a regional perspective. I just want to go back and, number one, I'd like to refer this to the EAC as a follow-up for what they've been doing. The request for this annual reporting actually came out of the EAC 4 years ago, where they were looking at less granular hydro data that came out of, okay, what's being sprayed around the transmission line corridors in our area. And so BC Hydro out of Yellowstone committed to doing an annual reporting back. And this is the 4th year that we've received that. So some of the data is there. The takeaway is that there's been no spraying on transmission line corridors or distribution line corridors. Like at the substation and the rationale that Hydro has done that every year for the last 4 years, their rationale is that there's a huge grid network that's buried under the substation, and they do not want vegetation going down and shorting out and causing problems to that grid network. So I think it's a good thing that we're getting this on a granular basis. I don't think many other local communities do that, and again, refer it to the EAC for their follow-up.
Great. Thank you, Councillor Lavery, and thanks for bringing it forward. I did meet with a representative from BC Hydro who asked us if we wanted to continue with these reports, and I said yes, we certainly did. So I think it's a good referral to the AC. Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, Your Worship. Item 10, not asking for money because Council, thank you, approved $500 in the budget for gloves and bags for the downtown community cleanup, but for the Youth Council and the gallery. This is the 5th year of the event, and it is happening on Saturday, April 13th at Shuswap Park Mall. And I have been involved in it about 3 or 4 times, and it's a fun morning to go out and help the community by doing a cleanup. Hopefully we'll be above 0 temperatures by then. I guess we got a month, so hopefully it'll be plus. And I hope that some of the Youth Council and others can join us. And then the next one from downtown Salmon Arm as the rep is number 11. And I would like to ask Your Worship to please work with staff to write a letter to Imperial Oil, who I believe is the owners of the property. I think we should ask them to clean up a little at least, because it is one of the first things people see coming down. They see the wonderful lake and fountain when it's running, and then they see the 7-Eleven site, and it would sure be nice to have that cleaned up in some form.
Chief Administrative Officer, should we have a motion?
I think that would be wise, yes.
Okay. We've drafted one. We have not got councillor authority to send the letter. So Councillor Flynn, would you like to make that motion?
Yes, I make that motion.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Lindgren.
And just speaking to the motion, yes, our planner has talked to, by email I believe, to Imperial Oil, but I think a letter from the mayor is much more impactful, and I would request that we do that.
Thank you. I'd be happy to write that letter, and I certainly agree with you. We do not want that burned out building to be there come tourist season, so we would like some improvement at least. And I think by writing a letter, that will bring their attention to it.
Thank you.
Councillor Walsh-Rich, would you like to speak to that item?
No.
Councillor Eliason, did you want to speak to that item?
Yeah, I'll go.
Okay. Councillor Walsh-Rich, I'm just going to skip over you.
No problem.
Okay, Councillor, and if you press your button again. Councillor Eliason?
I appreciate us wanting to rush this, but after a fire, it usually takes some time for insurance and adjustments to take place, investigations, because it is a former gas station. There will be environmental tests that have to take place before the redevelopment. So while we would like to rush this, everybody always says bureaucracy, and that's usually what people blame us for. So I think it's fine that we write a letter, but I also think that you're asking for something that you can't control. So I think it's kind of moot.
No, I appreciate that comment. I think what our approach will be with the letter is the part like if you look at that building now, you can see the burnt out part. So we would at least like some improvement in covering of that piece. Of course, it's probably going to be their choice, but we've been working cooperatively with them up to this stage, and I think they may well respond positively. I'm hopeful. Any other comments on that item? Councillor Wallace-Richmond, I'm going to skip over you one more time. Now you press the button again. Councillor Flynn.
Yeah, and I appreciate Councillor Lyson's comments. Brownfield redevelopment is a significant issue. I'm not asking for the tanks to be removed and the building to be torn down. I'm just asking for a little bit of cleanup, and I think that is not an unreasonable request. So I just encourage council to support the motion.
Okay, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillor Wallace-Richmond.
Thanks, Your Worship. Item 9, the Vintage Car Club, Shuswap Vintage Car Club. Through you to staff, is there not a program now through a partnership with the DIA and the Community Foundation to support events at the wharf?
Director of Corporate Services.
Thank you, Your Worship. Last year, a new program was put into effect through Downtown Salmon Arm, and I believe that there is a small grant available. I don't know if it would cover the full amount of the gazebo rental, but it is worth looking into.
Okay, so maybe through Your Worship, we could steer them in that direction for now and see how they make out, and then maybe reconsider if it's not an option.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace-Richmond. I know that there's representatives from the Vintage Car Club in the audience. Is council okay if we give them a minute to talk to us about their event? Would you like to come and talk to us a little bit about your circumstance? Come on forward.
Want me to come down there?
Please. And we have your letter from Barry Swenson, your president, but if you'd like to add anything to it, Graham, please feel welcome.
Mayor and council, Barry, the president, couldn't come today. However, 3 of us met with the mayor. The Vintage Car Club is a club that is self-supported. We don't go out and raise money per se. We do a lot of, we shouldn't call it charity work, but we do a lot of community work at the members' expense. Example, we attend all the seniors' homes with car shows at no expense to them. We support and have paid for a lot of the expense at the Haney Heritage Park in regards to the garage and the gas station. And we do community work in regards to schools, Carlin in 1, and all this is done at no cost. So we don't go out and raise monies per se, but we do and are expected to put on a car show once a year. This is our car show for Salmon Arm. Maybe some of you have heard of Hot Nights in the City in Kamloops. They only get about 400 cars. We get 135. They're far bigger than us. They get a lot of support from commercial ventures and the city. And is what has happened over the years, the rent has gone up at the wharf. It's not a lot of money, but the money would be in turn turned back into the event and offered as prizes. We would like to think that we could continue at that spot. We go down in the mornings, we mark out the sprinkler heads, we police the grounds as the cars are being parked. At the end of the event, we go around and clean up any garbage that's missed, etc. And we put a lot of effort voluntarily into it, and of course we in turn like to think we do a good job, and it does bring a lot of people to the community. We would like to continue to stay in Salmon Arm. However, if expenses get to be such, we do have a couple of alternatives, but unfortunately, it wouldn't be in town. So I think our request is fair. We've been there before, and I don't like to go back in history, but Marty was very supportive of us, and we appreciate the efforts he put forth. Any further questions?
Great, thank you, Graham. Councillor Walsh-Richmond, did you have any questions? Any councillor have a question? Councillor, oh, hang on, don't sit down yet. Councillor Lavery. Graham, hang on, I think Councillor Lavery has a question for you.
Yeah, thank you. So does the request involve waiving paying for the insurance as well? Does the question involve waiving paying the insurance? I'm assuming, maybe it's a question for staff. Does hosting events there through you, your worship, involve coming up with the insurance, the standard insurance that we have?
Through your worship, you're correct, Councillor Lavery. Insurance is required when events are hosted at Marine Park.
Okay. So do we have through you, your worship, do we have an amount of what the combination of insurance and usage of the park is?
Okay, we carry insurance as a club. Liability insurance for any damage that we might incur no matter what the location is. We carry insurance within our club when we go and work at the Haney Heritage Park. Now, you've asked me a question that I can't answer. Unfortunately, we lost our treasurer this year. Bruce Scott used to own the Pharmacy. He could have answered it, but we're in the midst of having somebody take over that position, so I can't answer.
So Graham, your request, I think, is for $485.
That's, yes.
Okay. And so I spoke to the gentleman from the Vintage Car Club. There's no admission to attend this event, right? It's a public event.
No, we do not charge.
Okay. And what I suggested to them was next year they could apply through the Shuswap Community Foundation and our grant, but they've missed the deadline this year. So I would move that we fund them $485. That's the fee to the Shuswap Recreation Society from council initiatives. Thank you, Councillor Eliason. Any questions or comments about it? Councillor Lavery, your light's still on.
Nobody home.
Okay. All right. Councillor Flynn.
Yeah, I support the motion.
Oh, my fault. Go ahead.
I support the motion. I just want to make sure staff works with them to ensure that their liability insurance doesn't need a special events provision, that their liability insurance covers it. And that would be my only concern as an insurance guy.
Fair enough. And so I'll call the question. All those in favor? Any opposed? Councillor Lavery opposed. Thank you, Council. And so for next year, this is a one-year granting, so that next year the deadline to apply to the Shuswap Community Foundation is December 31st. So you want to make sure you get your application in for that. You can get a online. You can get an application. It's a very simple application, and yeah, it's to the Shuswap Community Foundation, and it's a city grant. Okay. If you need any help, just let me know. Okay. Councillor Flynn, you're still up there?
No. I do have another item, but I'll wait my turn.
Okay, does anyone else have another item they'd like to speak to? Okay, Councillor Flynn, go ahead.
Item 7, and that's a letter from some of the swim clubs. We've got the letter. We appreciate the input, and I think it's really important to note that we're still in an input phase for the different options. Is that correct? And encourage people in the community to continue providing input with regards to the future potential improvements and changes to our pool complex. Is that fair?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Flynn. I'll just ask the corporate officer, we did meet, Councillor Cannon and myself and the committee last week, and we were preparing a press release. Where are we at with that?
Thank you, Your Worship. I do apologize to Council. We issued a press release this morning regarding the redevelopment of the recreation campus, and it is on the website and on Facebook as well.
Okay, so that Councillor Flynn is kind of a response to the feedback that was received at the open house and feedbacks from letters such as this. So we'll make sure that Council gets that press release.
And I don't know if the youth council spoke to you before the meeting, but they would like a team to come and present to them in April with regards to the campus redevelopment, so.
That will be most welcomed. Any others, Councillor Flynn? Okay. Does any other councillor have an item from the 17 informational correspondence before we flip over to the next ones? All right, let's move on then, and we'll do them one at a time. 11.2, letter from Ed McDonald, President of the Shuswap Naturalist Club, and Jay Aiken, President and S. Weaver, Director of Salmon Arm Bay Enhancement Society. Letter dated February the 8th, request for restriction of drones on the Salmon Arm foreshore. And we had talked about this previously. Councillor Lindgren.
Thanks. So we spoke about this at the Environmental Action Committee, and the whole committee was in support of some kind of signage to educate people about the effect that drones can have on nesting birds in particular and other wildlife in the area. And so I would like to make a motion that Council direct staff to investigate the cost and feasibility of installing signs at the 3 locations.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Wallace-Richmond. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor Lindgren?
Only to say that I think that the federal government is making motions that they are going to restrict and regulate the flight of drones a little bit more stringently, and so I think we'll have some help on this. I think our responsibility is to educate the public about the effects that they might not know about, and I think that we can do that pretty effectively through signage.
Thank you. Councillor Lavery.
Yes, thank you, Worship. I agree with that. Did we not ask staff to report back on an option of on this matter already?
There is the copy of the motion that, but we also asked that it be referred to SABNIS. Yep. So let's just check with staff and see where we're at with that. Director of Engineering and Public Works.
Your Worship, the cost for the signs and the installation will be about $300 for each sign. Unfortunately, the signage would have to be custom made because the signage that we use for the no drone flying at the airport is federal signage. And there is no authority or bylaw that, typically when you put a sign up, you have to have a bylaw that refers to the sign. And we don't have a bylaw that refers to no flying zones.
Okay, so where does that leave us?
Well, we could put up the signs, but they have no authority. And really SABNIS can do that on their own. We could pay for it if council wishes. But it's more of an educational sign than it is an enforcement sign.
Okay, understand. That's good information to have. Councillor Lowry, do you want to speak further?
Yeah, just carrying on. So how many signs are we talking about? 4 or 5?
I think it was mentioned that there was 3.
3.
Okay. I will defer at this stage.
Okay, so I think Councillor Lindgren's motion is to have staff investigate, because I'd like to see something back in writing from them, and that's what you're asking. So I will, unless there's further comment, I'll ask for the vote on the motion. Is there further comment? Okay, Councillor Flynn.
Yeah, so we did a motion previously to take this to SILGA, is that correct? Yeah. And I understand signage will help with education, but I think we've got something else in the budget to deal with potentially signage and education, or not the budget, but the correspondence coming up. I think the report's going to tell us what staff just told us. We could educate, but we have no bylaw. The province is being asked, or the feds, somebody is being asked to deal with this nationally. I guess I'm not saying I don't want the signs, I'm just not sure of the effectiveness.
Okay, fair enough, thank you. Any other comments on the motion? Director of Engineering and Public Works?
Your worship, I wasn't aware that there was a request for a report. It was basically just a request for costing.
Yes, I'm sorry, that I think we're thinking the same thing. I think it might be helpful just to have something short in writing, because it may also fit in with the other item that Councillor Flynn was talking about. I think that's what you're asking, Councillor Lindgren. And that, you know, if that's at the next council meeting in 2 weeks, that will be just fine. It doesn't have to be lengthy. Any other comments on that motion? All those in favor? Any opposed? Carries unanimously. Okay, let's go on to item 11.3. Jay Henderson, co-chair of the 2019 Ozone Festival. And I see that Joyce and Kim are here. Would council invite them to come forward for a minute? Please come speak to us about ozone.
Mayor and Council, thank you for the opportunity to talk about ozone. It's the Okanagan Zone Drama Festival, which means there are 6 visiting community theaters from the Okanagan coming and presenting in Salmon Arm over the week of May the 17th to 24th. It's an adjudicated event, so the prizes will be given to different aspects, and we hosted it in 2017, and we were surprised to be asked again to repeat it in 2019, but they were in desperate situation, and we had done such a good job, and the attendance was so good in 2017 that we said yes, and so that's the happening. It is the budget for it is $28,000 for the week around income and expenses. We have support from Up to Date. We have support from the MRDT fund, from Armstrong Regional Co-op, Blackburn Excavating, Hub Insurance, Web Contracting, and Askews. So there's good support from the businesses in the community. And so our request for assistance from the mayor and council is around funding. And you have received the list of the different levels of sponsorship, from being a festival sponsor for $1,500 to being a performance sponsor for $500. I'm open to any questions.
Council, do you have questions for Joyce? Councillor Lindgren.
Thanks for coming to talk to us, Joyce. I was just wondering if you have an estimate of how many people come to Salmon Arm during that week to see this.
So from the 6 visiting theater groups, there's 12 to 15 with each of those groups, and there's about a group about 50 to 60 that follow the ozone wherever it's happening. So I think we're looking at sort of 125, 150 of outside people coming to stay in part of the week or all of the week.
Thank you. Other questions? Councillor Wallace-Richmond.
Thanks, Your Worship. So Joyce, you were successful in obtaining MRDT funding for the event?
Sure.
Yeah. Can you tell me how much?
2,000.
2,000.
In 2017, when we hosted, that was the 150th anniversary of Canada.
Yes.
So there was a fair amount of funding available for events around that. And that year it was all Canadian authors of the plays. So we accessed about 4,500 from the Canada 150 various sources. And that's not available this year.
Right.
So,
and we supported it at the $1,500 level in 2017. Is that right?
that's true.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, we could make a motion to support out of council initiatives.
I'd entertain that motion if you'd like.
We do need to decide if we would do the full 1,500 or less. Only because MRDT funding is made specifically for this, right?
Yes.
And so it's an opportunity for groups like yours to get
Right.
funding that you might otherwise get out of council initiatives. So I'm just looking for guidance. Would 1,000 help, or?
It would help, yes.
Okay. But ultimately, your ask is for the full 1,500.
I mean, for 1,000, we will survive.
Yes.
A piece of the festival is that we're responsible for raising money for Theatre BC.
Right.
And that's their source of income from all the different zone festivals throughout the province. And so if we don't have enough income, it would just mean that Theatre BC would get less.
I see.
Unless, do you want to comment, Kim, about that?
I'd like to hear more about that.
I don't think I have anything to add to that statement as far as the Theatre BC thing is. I mean, $1,000 would be like 2 performance sponsors,
Right.
whereas the city is then featured as a festival sponsor throughout the whole event as at the $1,500 level.
I see.
And just I could say that we get better audiences when the festival is in Salmon Arm than most places do.
Right. So then, Your Worship, through you to council, given that we have a new brand and we would get a full page ad in the program, maybe it would add value to go to the full 1,500 and make sure that that ad is reflective of our new branding and messaging to all of these lovely people coming to Salmon Arm for the arts.
And also the branding would go on all the posters, the program would have a wide outreach.
Right.
Okay, is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Eliason? So the motion is to be a festival sponsor, $1,500 from council initiatives. Councillor Wallace-Richmond?
Yes.
Okay. Questions around the motion? Councillor Cannon?
I don't have a question, just a statement that I'll totally support it. I think it gives great value, and if we have the ability to get our new logo and our word mark, I guess is what we call it, out there, I think that's great. And I know that it's well supported when we host this in Salmon Arm.
Thank you, Councillor Cannon. Councillor Flynn?
I just so I'm clear, the group hasn't applied to MRDT?
Yes, that's true.
You have, but haven't been told if you've got?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, you got lots of money from them too. Okay. Okay, I will support. I just think this is a good event, and we've been sponsors in the past, but if we're putting in 1,500 in order for the BC Council to get more, I'm not sure I support that. But
Understand?
I'd be more comfortable us doing 1,000 or 500, but then we don't get the advertising of our new word mark. I would suggest maybe next year I won't be as supportive, or if there's 2 years from now or 3 years from now.
Councillor Lavery?
Yes, thanks for the presentation. I'll support it as well. Do we know what the Salmon Arm entry is going to be in the ozone?
Pardon?
Do we know what the Salmon Arm entry is going to be?
Yes, it's called Lend Me a Tenor, and it's a bit of musical, comedy. It's for men and for women, and a bit of chaos happens at a musical event, and I think it's a crowd pleaser.
I've seen it before, and it is absolutely hilarious.
That's great. Chaos is always good. And I just want to do a shout out to the play that just finished, Trying, as one of the better productions I've seen in a long time. Poignant, touching, well done, and well supported, I think, from the community. So congratulations.
And a special thanks to Kim for being the director of the...
I was looking at him when I was saying that. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lavery. Councillor Wallace-Richmond?
Thanks, Your Worship, for a second opportunity. Just echoing what Councillor Flynn said, because we now have gone through the process of the MRDT, the hotel tax, really that's meant to redirect these kinds of fund requests through that body. I'm happy to do it for this year, but I think over the long term at this table, we need to figure out what's going to be MRDT and what's going to be council initiatives. So I just feel better telling you that next time it might not be
Thank you.
yes or a full 1,500, so.
Thank you for that
Okay.
clarification.
All right.
Thank you, Councillor Wallace-Richmond. To the Chief Financial Officer, what is our balance in council initiatives for 2019?
Your Worship, prior to the last council initiative of 485, it was 21,790.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you. Any other comments on the motion before we vote? Thank you for the discussion. All those in favor? Passed unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Will you get 2 tickets for each of all the 7 plays? So hopefully some of you will get to enjoy it.
Thank you. Oh, Councillor Flynn, I'm sorry. Did you want to say something else?
All I was going to say is related to the 2 tickets. In the past, we've kind of donated those back to them to give to people in the community of need. So unless anybody here specifically wants them, I think we should make the same gesture, or the students, or whatever.
Okay, let's think about that.
Okay, we'll think about it and talk about it.
All right, we'll move on to item 11.4, Elks Recreation Children's Camp Society of British Columbia and the Salmon Arm Air Cadet Squadron request. And there is a letter from the Elks. Is there any representatives from the Elks here? Okay, I don't see any, although the letter is quite self-explanatory. Councillor Eliason.
Yeah, thanks. I'd make the motion to support that.
Okay, so let's just craft that motion. Do you, or would you like Chief Administrative Officer to do that?
Well, I'd just make the motion to direct staff to amend, I believe it's an amendment to our lease that we have with the Elks to allow the cohabitation of the Air Cadets in the Elks Kids Camp. And
thank you. Seconded by Councillor Flynn. Speaking to the motion, Councillor Eliason.
I just think it's a good use of space and accommodates a group in need with somebody who has the assets.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wallace-Richmond.
Thanks, Your Worship. I am also very supportive. It's too bad they're not here, because I wanted to ask about the maneuvers and whether or not they're using, not weapons, but guns, you know, firearms. Of course, they're not loaded, you know, so I mean, I think we need to be clear, make it clear to the community that these are just maneuvers. There's no storage of firearms. There's no live ammunition, that sort of thing. So.
Okay, no, it's a good comment. Thank you. Councillor Lindgren.
I think my question was answered. I was just curious why it was coming through us, but it sounds like we hold the lease, so that's good.
Thank you. I think I certainly support the motion. The Air Cadets have been moved from place to place and really have looked for a spot. And if this spot works for them and it works for the Elks, then it's a win-win, I think. Is there any comment from staff? Director of Corporate Services.
Thank you, Your Worship. I did have a conversation with the letter writer, and he assured me that it would be very minimally impactful to the community, and that the cadets would pack up all their things in between nights, and that they would not be storing anything on site of any significance. So.
Great, thank you for that information. Councillor Lindgren?
It's okay, Aaron answered it.
Thank you. All those in favor of the motion? Thank you very much. And I think we can fit this one in. We've got 2 more, actually. I think we can. 11.5, Phil McIntyre, Paul, Shuswap Trail Alliance, email dated March the 1st, updated foreshore trail dog monitoring report and recommendations. Is there a representative from the Shuswap Trail Alliance here? Okay. Does staff have anything that they would like to say beyond the letter? Okay. Seeing none, I'll open it up to council. Councillor Lavery.
Yes, thanks, Your Worship. Phil did present this report to the Greenways a couple of days ago, and I guess my question at the time, and I wasn't aware of it coming up on the agenda, was how does council see and deal with this? I guess human nature raises its ugly head here. The report is certainly showing that there's been a decrease in dogs actually on leash, and a number of other points of reference and data points. But the overall thing is that I think that we, over the last couple of years, we've relied on the dog monitoring to give us a perspective over time, and there's been some recommendations in a number of the ancillary material. I think that we need more information, Your Worship. I would like, I think I've mentioned this to Phil already, I would like to see him present to us on this. Some of the suggested actions about news releases, PR, reminders in the weekly city ad block are pretty straightforward and we can do them, but I think there are some cost implications here and also some determination by council of how active we want to be in this monitoring. Now personally I'm in favor of the active monitoring and ongoing, but there's maintaining annual monitoring, establishing an advisory, continuing of it, and there's also a suggestion that's come from Sabnus that the dates of the closure be shifted from May 1st to June 30th, and with a pretty good rationale. One of my questions is I'm not sure what bylaw implications, and we talked about signage versus bylaw, what bylaw implications are required to actually change those dates. So through you, Your Worship, I guess I'd ask us to schedule Phil to come in and also staff to report back on some of the bylaw implications as well as the costing implications of how we go further.
Okay, so I think your idea to defer until Phil can speak to us is a good idea. Did you want to make that motion?
I'll make that motion, but also include staff coming back in terms of estimated costs and practicality of doing this, as well as bylaw implications.
Okay, seconded by Councillor Flynn. Did you want to speak further to the motion?
No, I think that's pretty well it.
Councillor Flynn, did you want to speak to that?
I don't think we debate deferrals, do we?
Well, let me just check with the Chief Administrative Officer. The motion is to defer this item until and reschedule it when Phil McIntyre Paul is available. Can we debate that, or do we just vote?
We just vote on it.
All right. All those in favor? Any opposed? Thank you. Okay. Item 11.6, June Stewart's letter. This one was sent afterwards to you, late item 11.6. Can I refer to staff? I haven't really had a chance to look at it. I'm not sure if the Director of Corporate Services has had a chance to talk about this one. Can you, Councillor Lyson? Okay. Go ahead, Councillor Lyson.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. This is a letter asking for us to be lenient or tolerant for the film festival, March 24th, 28th. We've referred this to our next parking committee meeting.
Okay.
When we've dealt with this in the past, we would have to make up for those funds if we were to give free parking or do something else from something like council initiatives. So in the past, these requests have generally been declined because it is downtown parking and there are options. But we have referred this letter to the Parking Commission for discussion. I don't know if staff has anything else to add to it, but it's really hard for us to change our bylaws for one event.
Okay, so your suggestion is council not deal with this and have the Downtown Parking Commission look after it.
But that being said, there isn't really enough time between the Parking Commission and the council, but Director of Engineering might have something else.
Okay, Director of Engineering and Public Works.
Your Worship, the Downtown Parking Commission meeting is just before the council meeting on the 25th. Mm-hmm. So we could report back on the 25th at that point. The bylaw staff have indicated to me that they're concerned about the loss of revenue or the enforcement during that period for the entire week. Mm-hmm. And they've also suggested that maybe it's a possibility of having the event moved to the Salmon Grand, and that way it's in the parking lot. All the parking can be facilitated there. So.
Okay, that's good information. Thank you very much. Councillor Lyson, did you want to add anything else?
No, we'll discuss it at the parking meeting.
Councillor Flynn?
So the event is March 24th to 28th, and what I just heard is the downtown parking meeting is just before our March 25th council meeting. So I guess I'm trying to figure out how we would, if we decided we wanted to accommodate in any way, how we would deal with that.
The event is the 25th to 29th, actually. Spring break's the 24th to 28th.
Oh, 25th to 29th, so we have time. Okay, I was reading the wrong dates. My bad. I was approached by this organization, and I guess when I look at our ticket revenue and our parking revenue and consider relaxing requirements for a 4-day period, I just can't see that being a material number. But I will leave it to the Downtown Parking Commission to deal with this. I'm a strong proponent that we need to go to 2-hour, but throughout the whole community. But anyway, that's a whole other issue. I think we should try to accommodate this because I know a number of young families got tickets last time. And I don't know if that's what we want.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Wallace-Richmond.
Thanks, Your Worship. I just threw you to staff. Did this not come up the same time last year? This isn't.
Director of Engineering and Public Works, do you remember this one?
Your Worship, all I know is that there was a lot of tickets issued during that period, and there was a lot of people coming to the counter complaining about the tickets being issued.
I see.
So maybe Kevin has some additional comments, I'm not sure.
Director of Development Services.
I tend to agree with Councillor Flynn in terms of the what's material and fine revenue over that period of time. That's my own opinion on it.
Okay. Okay, we have referred it to the Downtown Parking Commission, so we may leave it at that. Councillor Eliason.
You'll all be happy to know the Downtown Parking Commission is actively working on a new comprehensive plan for the parking strategy going forward in Salmon Arm, and your comments are all welcome and appreciated. We will consider your 2-hour parking, your 3-hour parking, your 1-hour parking, and leniency, along with the new parkade. Thanks for the opportunity to speak a second time, Your Worship.
Thank you. Any other comments on this item? Okay, we will move on. And our timing is very good. Okay, we're into presentations. And I see our Silverback friends are here. Welcome to you. Great to have you here. Come on forward. You're going to talk to us about National Junior A Championships. Welcome Ian and Darren and Brooks.
So just to clarify, we're actually here as the Shuswap Sports Society.
Okay.
Anyway, Your Worship, Council, honored guests, my name's Ian Gray. I'm here representing the newly formed Shuswap Sports Society along with my co-chair Darren Mays and Brooks Christensen. In the spirit of small city, big ideas, the Shuswap Sports Society has been created in order to present a successful bid to Hockey Canada to host the 2021 Junior A Canadian Hockey Championships right here in Salmon Arm. This tournament is the most prestigious gathering of amateur hockey in Canada. At the beginning of each Junior A hockey season, there are over 135 teams that compete to get the chance to participate and represent their communities in this event. But only the top 4, along with a host team, get to come make the trip to the national championship. Having the opportunity to live this national championship in 2015 in my hometown of Portage Prairie, where I got to watch my son participate and become a national champion, will go down as one of my greatest memories. The championship brought generations of people from all reaches of the community and surrounding areas back to the rink, and more importantly, back to town to be involved. The tournament in Portage generated just under $200,000 in legacy funds that were given to local causes, scholarships, and local sports, and the Shuswap Sports Society will attempt to mirror the Portage model. Living in Salmon Arm for the last 5 years, I can say with certainty that the Shuswap and Salmon Arm are the perfect place to host the national championship. We have outstanding facilities, including our rec center, hotels, and restaurants, along with our community spirit and our glorious outdoors where guests will experience world-class hiking, biking, boating, golfing, bird watching, and fishing, just to name a few. Salmon Arm and the Shuswap will be on every visitor's radar for future vacations and potential places to come work, live, play, and retire. We've had an economic impact evaluation prepared using the standardized visitor expenditure profiles, which primary data was collected from the Canadian Sports Tourism Association. Now we have a slide here, I think it's page 2. There we go. You can see on the slide provided that this 10-day event will result in direct visitor spending of just over $1.1 million, primarily in categories of lodging, food, fuel, and recreation. Further evaluation indicates additional ongoing economic impact associated with media impressions at a value of $1.2 million. The total, this 10-day event, is projected to generate is $2.38 million in economic impact throughout the region. The fact that this event is hosted in mid-May aligns perfectly with the goals and objectives of the MRTD and the 2% hotel tax. Hosting the Canadian Championships will also give us the opportunity to showcase our world-class volunteers and put Salmon Arm and the Shuswap on the map for future national events. By communicating with past hosts of this national championship, like Portage la Prairie, Chilliwack, and Vernon, we've determined that the average cost associated with hosting the tournament is somewhere between $650,000 and $750,000. The Shuswap Sports Society is asking the city to take a leadership role in this big idea. We feel that when the city confirms their sponsorship and support, it will be an important signal which will help secure support from other community groups and corporate sponsors. As a small community, we need everyone behind this big idea. We're asking council to consider supporting the event in 3 different ways. 1, providing a letter of support to accompany our bid submission. 2, support the event in 221 by way of financial commitment. And 3, consider acting as an event ambassador. Help us spread the word through your networks and get the community as excited about this opportunity as we are. We need your help to put forth the most attractive bid possible, as only 3 top bids will be given the opportunity to present and propose to Hockey Canada in mid-May in Brooks, Alberta at the 2019 National Championship. In British Columbia, we have been unofficially told that 2 other communities will be bidding for this event as well. So in closing, the Shuswap Sports Society thanks you in advance for your support and your help.
Great, thank you very much, Ian. It's pretty exciting what you're talking about. I'll open it up for council to ask any questions that they might have. Council, do you have any questions you'd like to ask these gentlemen? Councillor Eliason.
Yeah, thanks for presenting and thanks for bringing this forward. I heard 3 requests, and the first and the third one sounded really easy and inexpensive for us to do, but the second one was the financial one.
Right.
And there was an absence of numbers there. Just wondering if you could further on that.
Well, we never want to limit your expectation. Anyway, that was not nearly as smooth as I thought it was going to be. We did look at past hosts and looking at Vernon, Portage la Prairie, and Chilliwack, and they all participated at the level of $25,000.
Okay.
Plus services in kind.
Okay. So that's a rough estimate. I know Vernon's won 6 RBC Cups, and TSN covers it nationally. And we've had a lot of luck, and we've done a lot of work through the arena in the past with getting the proper lighting for television in there. And I know it was an expensive thing to do, but we did it. And I know that working with the MRDT and with Lana and the Arena Society, we made a really strong bid for Hockeyville. So I'm very supportive. I think at this stage you're just looking for a letter, and I'd be happy to support a letter and our commitment to doing that. I think it's a great event that we could host. So especially with our connections with Hockey BC and everything else that we do. So.
Okay, so Councillor Eliason, you'd be moving that?
I'd move the motion.
Okay, Councillor Cannon second, but we'll talk more to these gentlemen if you have questions, Councillor, or comments. Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation, Ian. And as you know, I'm a huge supporter and very much in favor of us trying to make this happen. I did have a question. The letter of support timing needs to be immediate, I'm assuming?
We have to have the bid submitted by April 30th.
So you pre-answered my next question.
Yeah.
Okay, April 30th. And you said $25,000 plus services in kind.
Correct.
Is that services in kind related to free use of the facility? What would be
that would be phenomenal. I don't think that's our expectation.
Okay.
We're just at this point we're just putting the bid package together. We know that ice costs are a major component of that, coming in at just under $60,000.
Okay.
So there are pieces that you may be able to assist us with. Right now, though.
And any financial commitment would only be required in 2021?
Yeah, I mean, again, it is 221 that the tournament's held in May, so that we're in 19, so there is some time to divide that money up, or put it in the budget and pay us at the time.
Okay. And just to be clear, because I did, as the EDS rep, I have had a conversation with Lana about this. That economic impact study was done in coordination with our EDS, and
Yes, absolutely.
Lana did a lot of the work on.
Did a great job.
And I guess I could just ask a quick question, if that's all right, Lana. It said conservative. Do you feel those numbers are relatively conservative? Is it okay for me to ask that?
Absolutely.
Sorry to put you on the spot, Lana, but
No, just a quick response on that. I think we had some great actuals from previous events that we compared to, and they actually came in lower than what we saw in other communities, so I'd say it's very conservative. We went with, I think, 775 spectators per day for those events, and I think what we've heard from other communities, that's definitely on the conservative side.
especially with the host team. getting a spot.
Chilliwack was 2.7 and change.
Okay.
Yeah, and being at the event in Portage, most games were like 1,500 people.
I will encourage other councillors, but it's interesting, I just made a trip to Vancouver Island, and in the ferry lineup yesterday at Duke Point was a white and orange Nanaimo Clippers truck. And I spent an hour talking to the Director of Hockey Operations, General Manager, and Head Coach, and he said to me, I hear you guys are bidding on this. They've already got their bid in, and we lost to them back years ago in the semifinals or the BC finals. I want to beat them for this. So I'm very supportive and ask council to be supportive. I think this would really help put us on the map from a hockey viewpoint. So thank you for putting together a new society to try to make this happen.
Thanks, Councillor Flynn. Councillor Cannon.
Thank you. So just back to the in-kind, what are you thinking the in-kind donations would be?
Well, you bring up a good example of facilities. I'm trying to think what other things there's that you could participate in, really.
I think that's the biggest.
That would be, yeah, for sure, that would be the biggest. I mean, I think that's the arm that you could help us with, would be facility.
So 60,000 is what you're looking at for the ice costs.
That's what, yeah, we've sort of been suggested that it costs. When you look at what it cost in Chilliwack, it was just under that. I think it was around $57,000 to host the 10-day event.
Yeah. So my other question is the Shuswap Sports Society, is that strictly put together to do this bid, or?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The big thing that Hockey Canada looks at is they want to see a community behind this. They prefer to see it in a society form versus a hockey team like the Silverbacks bringing an offer to the table. They think having the community involvement, city council involvement, and the surrounding areas involved make for a better tournament, a better showcase. So we thought it was very important that we created a society.
Yeah, I know when I was involved with the Recreation Society way back when they put a bid in for the RBC Cup, there was members from the society that presented that. And I think there might be, lessons to learn from those members that were involved in that. So I would urge you to get together with those people that were involved with that. Because I know when they presented, they really felt like they had it in the bag and they were going to get it. But as soon as they showed up to present their bid to it, they knew right away that there was a different feel for when they got in there. So I think they would be good people to chat with as you get the bid together.
For sure.
But I totally support it. I think it would be wonderful for our community.
Yeah, and just to clarify for anybody that doesn't know in the room, the RBC Cup is what we're asking for. RBC has stepped down as the major sponsor in that tournament. It may return to the Centennial Cup, which it was for many, many years. But it is the same thing we're asking about. So,
thank you. Councillor Wallace-Richmond.
Thanks, Your Worship. So the Shuswap Sports Society would, of course, work with our rec society in planning this? Okay.
Every arm.
All right. And in terms of sponsors, you'd be looking for financial support from the city, but also from corporate sponsors, MRDT?
Everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody.
And is that number 600,000?
Well, I think the revenue for ticket sales was around $270,000 in Chilliwack. So in most cases, I think the bid, they're sort of looking for a minimum of a $75,000 sort of commitment. We believe that we can our goal is to triple that. We'd like to be somewhere between $200,000 and $300,000 going through the door if we're given the opportunity in May to present.
Right. so from now till May, you would like to secure just north of 250,000 in commitments?
Absolutely.
All right, okay. Thanks.
You bet.
Thank you. Councillor Lindgren.
Hi, thanks for presenting. I'm just curious, how many people does our arena here hold? You said about 1,500 people came to watch in Chilliwack. So can we seat that many here?
I want to say Darby could answer this question better, but I think your seating capacity is just over 2,200.
We're 1,500, I believe, 400 standing.
Depends if the fire marshal is there or not. No, just kidding. Yeah, about 2,200 people.
Right, thanks.
Yeah.
Councillor Cannon.
I just wanted to add to that. I think the date or the time when we had the arena to capacity was at the Women's Nationals, and it was televised. And I know that Hockey Canada was just amazed by the attendance that we had there. Every standing place was taken and every seat was taken. So I think those numbers are when we exceeded.
Yeah. Well, I can say that I've been to the Western Canadian Championships in Penticton, and they have a beautiful facility, but the facility is actually overpowering. It's too big. One of the reasons that I agreed with Brooks and with Darren about this being the perfect place to host this is that we do hold 2,200 people, and you put 1,500 people in there, and the rink becomes electric. And I think we become, the game in town, so you don't have a bunch of divided interests. I just think if we have our facilities almost mirror each other compared to Portage, with the rink beside. For hosting, other events during the actual games. It's phenomenal.
And I think with our lighting now and our new screen that's up there really puts us on the map for sure.
Great, thank you. So can I call a question? All those in favor? Thank you very much, and really appreciate, first of all, you forming the society, and the three of you coming to council and talking with us. I think you can see that council's pretty excited about it. So what we'll do is the corporate officer and myself will be in touch with you to make sure that our letter is the very best we can make it in support.
Wonderful. So I kind of got bet before I came in here, and I don't like to lose bets. So I just wondered, I realize it's a very formal environment, but you guys have already been here since 1 o'clock, and you probably need a stretch anyway. So I just wondered if I could get everybody stand up. Everybody stand up? Everybody stand up.
All right, this is like a stretch break.
Yeah, it's a stretch break, exactly. Not a pee break, but a stretch break. Anyway, you guys are welcome to stand up. It's okay. You don't have to type or anything. It's not embarrassing. So years ago, the first time I ever got to speak at council, I was about 29 years old, and I was this very, very shy guy, much like I am today. And I got all these guys to cheer on the count of three. And the only reason I do that is that as adults, we don't often take the chance to celebrate victories, and I think if we win this tournament, it's a true victory for Salmon Arm and the surrounding area. So on the count of three, I just want everybody to raise their arms and cheer, okay? Cheer like you won the Stanley Cup. You guys ready to go?
I'm ready.
Okay. 1, 2, 3. Woo! Awesome. All right. Thank you very much, you guys.
Yes.
I'm going to talk to him. So Ian, you can leave saying you got a standing ovation. Thank you very much. Okay, we're right on time. Item 2, Lindsey Wong, Downtown Salmon Arm, yearly update. I see Lindsey's here with some of her board members and staff. Welcome to council.
Thank you for having us. So I'm Lindsey Wong, manager of Downtown Salmon Arm, and
I'm Jennifer Broadwell. I am the membership coordinator for Downtown Salmon Arm.
so please just watch the video for about 4 minutes. That's it.
Great, thank you, Lindsay, and thank you for the Small City Big Ideas logos. Go ahead.
Yeah, we coordinated this, just so you know. So in 1974, the Salmon Arm Downtown Improvement Association was incorporated under the BC Societies Act. In 1988, the DIA, or DSA as we're now known by, was the first association in the province to be established as a business improvement area, a BIA, under the BC Municipal Act. In those early days, BIA's focuses were on business promotion schemes, such as carrying out studies or making reports, improving, beautifying, or maintaining streets and sidewalks, removal of graffiti, conserving heritage property, or encouraging business.
In the past 31 years, BIA mandates have grown in advance to include such things as safety, marketing, events and activities, capital improvements, transportation, signage, density, and business attraction. We've worked on all of these areas with the aim of being the hub of the community, the place where you do business, where you go to be entertained, exchange ideas on the street, bring your guest, and have respite in nature. From the video, you can see that we touch all different people in the community, and many. We have a robust and diverse board of directors representing the many different business sectors who work towards a downtown that is about community, collaboration, and commerce.
Over the years, we have invested in capital improvements such as the Ross Street Plaza, the washrooms, and recently the breezeway and recycling receptacles. Moving forward, we continue to plan for capital improvements, connectivity between the wharf and the core, programming for advanced street and nightlife, enhanced public gathering spaces, and overall to be a healthy community, to have healthy planning principles as part of our design and development of infrastructure and initiatives. We just want to say thank you to all of our partners who contribute their time, money, labor, and wisdom. And there's just way too many for me to mention. But on a final note, we invite Mayor and Council to a roundtable discussion so we can share our vision and better allow us to work together towards common goals. Thank you very much, and if you have any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
Great, thank you. Councillor Flynn.
Oh, no, that was from before.
Oh, sorry.
I'm relatively familiar with DSA, so I'll let others ask questions.
Okay, questions from council? Councillor Cannon.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just have a question about just your looking at your income on your budget here. So under grant is where you have, you know, the majority of your income as grant. Is that the money that the businesses, the property owners are assessed?
Yes, that's correct. That grant reflects the levy that is collected by the city and flows through the city and granted to downtown Salmon Arm.
So that's the name of it, is grant.
A levy, yeah.
Okay.
It's, I guess, more commonly known as a levy.
Yeah. I guess my question is, as a property owner on this side of the highway, on commercial property, there's quite a boundary of properties on this side that are in the levy border. I guess my question is, do you get very many property owners on this side wondering exactly what the benefits of DIA are for them? Like, because a lot of your promotional things that you do, and there's a lot of them as we saw in the video, are more on they're all in the downtown core, not on this side of the highway.
We have queried that in the sense of as far as a facility and an active public gathering space. And because the Ross Street Plaza is developed for that, that's the main reason why most of the events are held there when we look at promotional activities. We certainly held one year a very fun and successful eco fair, which was held here at Fletcher Park and utilized the front of the city hall and then this whole area there. So that was meant to be a little more inclusive too of the other businesses here. But other things that we do work on is we certainly work with our businesses in promotional schemes. So we work with individual owners like Wildwood Emporium and Fabric Land and Eco Treats. But we did develop a bike rack, like we did install one on this side in front of which used to be Java Jive. It is now Eco Treats. So that was built there, installed there. And we do have the grad flower bed planting, and we have done Christmas trees and allowed Christmas trees to be planted on this side so we can decorate them. So there are some things we do try to continue to be inclusive and certainly welcome any input, or if we get any feedback from businesses that are on the other side or this side of the highway that we wish to hear from them.
I guess myself, I was just thinking banners, maybe going off of up Okanagan there, so that it's including those businesses.
Yeah, absolutely. If we had armatures, then we would certainly have...
And planters too.
So planters are still sort of, that's a combination of combining it with the city as far as planters, but we'd be more than happy to look at that. But the planters certainly have to be moved by and placed by the city and in conjunction with that, so...
Okay, so the city pays for those and then the DIA?
Yes, for the Christmas trees, that's correct.
Christmas trees. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Cannon. Other councillors with questions? Councillor Wallace-Richmond.
Thanks, Your Worship. Thanks for presenting. Can you tell me more about the roundtable discussion?
Yeah, I can't tell you much because we don't really have too much planned, but we've been working on it for Mayor Harrison and our President Ron Langridge, and in conjunction with our Councillor Flynn there we're trying to get together a time that it would work for everyone and just have an open roundtable discussion where the board could meet with the councillors, and the councillors can meet our board members and or our board directors, and then we'll just have talk about our planning and our goals and what we want to achieve, and if there's a way we can combine those efforts and so that you also know what direction that we're going into, and it may be. It's not as straightforward as just coming and making a presentation for a few minutes, once a year. It's nice to have that chat about, this is what we see and we like to work towards, and maybe there's some obstacles or things that you could suggest for us, or that is just totally off, in a different direction. So like a strategic
plan?
To some degree, but it's also just an open thing. We're not going to come and present. It's not a presentation. It's just, an open roundtable, yeah.
And thanks, through your worship, your board's recently been through a strat plan, is that right?
No, that was over a year ago.
Oh,
so,
okay,
yeah.
all right. But would it be tied to those outcomes, or? Maybe I would feel more comfortable if I knew what the strat plan was. But absolutely, I think we need to be talking all the time.
Right. Yeah, and I think that's really the purpose of this at this stage. We will be coming forward with our 7-year budget at the time because it's our renewal year.
Yes.
So we'll be coming forward with some planning and visionary ideas that we have then. So.
Okay, and then if your worship doesn't mind, just one more question. How are your members doing? Like the ratio is 40% of the members are retail and dining and 60% are like offices, or do you know that?
I don't know the percentage, but I would say it's probably heavier actually on offices. And,
offices,
yeah.
Okay. And how are members doing?
Do you mean financially, or?
Well, no, I mean, do you get to talk to them? Are they, are they thriving? Is it working out?
Yeah, I think it's a constant struggle. To be honest, we can have a very booming summer season, which we all know, but we know also what the winters can be like here for our small business owners. And some businesses do very well and are very happy with their position, and other ones are, quite possibly could be newer ones that have difficulties, and it for numerous reasons that are beyond mine and yours control, but. So I think we definitely have a mixed bag. We're not there yet, but we would love to be. That's what we work towards.
All right, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Flynn.
Thank you, Worship. And maybe I could just clarify with the Director of Corporate Services. The contract renewal process, as you said, Lindsey, you're going for 7 years. What role does council or the city play in that? Could you maybe clarify for everybody at this table?
Director of Corporate Services.
Thank you, Your Worship. If the business improvement area is seeking to expand, then there is a petitioning process that is required by council in order to do that.
But the 7-year renewal, how is that like a counter petition process? Do they have to get a certain number of people saying they don't want to be part of it? I'm confused with this renewal and how it works.
Through Your Worship, it is a requirement. It's a calculation based on the property ownership within that boundary, and it is somewhat similar to a counter petition, and the outcome would be a bylaw.
Okay, so the bylaw needs to get approval every X number of years, and
that's correct.
Okay, with regards to the offer to have a roundtable, that was kind of between the board and myself. I feel that this is an opportunity for council to sit down with the DSA board members before the contract renewal and talk about what we feel as the elected officials downtown Salmon Arm should be doing. Have you share your strategic plan and say this is what we determined that our members want us to do, and maybe just have a get together to talk about it. Because I feel at this table quite often, I don't think it's completely understood what DSA is doing, what role they are playing, and I wanted to open those lines of communication. So for council, I think it's more of an informal, or it could be formal, meeting where we sit down with the DSA board members and talk about what do we want to see with the upcoming contract renewal from council point of view.
Yep, I agree, Councillor Flynn, and I think probably if you can coordinate that with Lindsey and present to us a date, I think as many of us that can participate as possible would be there.
And maybe you should remind everybody when your AGM is too.
Our AGM is April 17th, and it's an AGM/open house at the Prestige. So it's a Wednesday night, April 17th from 5 until 8 p.m.
Great, thank you.
And I did mention the cleanup day in our correspondence, so thank you. I reminded everybody.
Thank you.
Councillor Cannon.
Just a couple other quick questions. So the grants on the financial are the levy, if I'm correct. Question to Corporate Director Services.
Through your worship, yes, Councillor Cannon, that is correct.
That's the levy, the whole amount. And then my other question is, what is it usually a 7-year?
Director of Corporate Services?
Through your worship, there's no prescribed number of years, and I would have to look at the file for past history. I don't know why that number was chosen.
Okay, I'm just curious. I thought 7 years was maybe more than it usually was in the past, but if...
What was the last one, Lindsay? How long?
The last one was 10 years. Oh, really? 2010 to 2019. So when I did research on other business improvement areas, they ranged from 5 to 9. So we chose 7 thinking it would, 5 is quite short and 10 is definitely quite long. So that's our preferred.
Thank you. Council, do you have any other questions? Thank you very much. Thanks, Lindsay, for coming, Jennifer, for coming and presenting to us. We look forward to that opportunity to sit down in sort of a longer, more informal session, perhaps.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Councillor Flynn said he was bringing the beer. He just nodded. So thank you very much for having us.
Thank you. Okay, we're going on to 13.3. Presentation from Brian Schreiner and Darcy Seegers, 2020 Curl BC Men's and Ladies Provincial Championships. Welcome, Brian. Welcome, Darcy. Great to see you here.
Hey, thanks, Mayor and Council. It's great to be here, and we appreciate the opportunity. So just to follow on the heels of the Silverbacks there, we just caught the tail end, so we're excited about that as well. So we would require the Shaw Center. The event takes place from January 27th to February the 2nd, 2020. And we would require the Shaw Center about a week earlier, I think January 23rd, for ice installation and setup. We've already met with your facility manager. We had a conference call with your manager and Curl BC. And the Salmon Arm Silverbacks, they've graciously negotiated an amended schedule with BCGHL, so there'd be no conflict for that time period. Last year we hosted the U18 Opposite Boys and Girls Championships. Anybody that's been into our rink, if you look at the ice shed, you'll see all the events on the wall that we've hosted. This would definitely be the biggest one that we would have hosted since, I think, the National Juniors, which is 2009. So there'll be 20 teams. There's going to be 8 women's and 12 men's teams, so that gives you about 130 players, coaches, officials, delegates, plus, of course, fans and volunteers. We're strategically located in the Okanagan, the interior. I'm sure we would garner interest from Kelowna to Kamloops and from the coast. Our GM has met with the CAEDS. They estimate that the economic spin-off could be up to $630,000, and they've provided a letter of support. There will be TV and media coverage, which will promote the community. CBC is going to be streaming during the week, and then they're going to broadcast the final. So because of our successful hosting in the past and our relationship with Curl BC, we're really confident that our bid will have a great chance of acceptance, but we require the city's involvement, especially with the budgeting purposes with respect to the Shaw Center. This is the second year that there will be the combined championship. This past year, there was the first one, it was at Quesnel, and they averaged about 900 people a day. So our bid's a little different, say, from the Silverbacks. We've already bid on the championship to Curl BC, and we're competing with one other community. Now, they kind of, I don't want to go down the limb here and say, but they kind of led us to believe that we could be the preferred candidate as long as we get support from the city and maybe some kind of idea on the budget. We can't give you a budget because we haven't won the bid to form a committee to do a budget, so it's a little bit different. The bottom line is we feel really confident kind of led to believe that it's ours for the taking, as long as we have support from the city and we can get a good deal on the arena rental. And just to reiterate, I guess the city of Cornell graciously donated that. So we thank you for the opportunity to present today, and if you have any questions.
Great, thank you very much, Brian, and thanks, Darcy. It's another really exciting event, so I'll pass it over to Council, Councillor Eliason.
I'd make a motion that we write a letter in support at this time and work out the details afterwards.
Okay, seconder to the motion, Councillor Lavery. Thank you. Do you have a question for these gentlemen as well, or a comment?
I just have comments, so I don't have any questions.
You can go ahead with your comments.
Knowing that our BC rep, Jim Cotter, was just at the Briar, and I saw that how exciting it was, and knowing that curlers are, they travel in packs, and they'll come from all over to watch it. It may be the most Canadian sport of all time. I mean, hockey was this, hockey's that, but to see the Canadian curling and the Canadian fans and the sponsorship, I think that while they only show the final on Sportsnet of the BC championships, it's a great thing for us to host, especially at a time when I don't think the arena will be maybe as busy, and we could arrange to make it happen. So I would love to see this event come to Salmon Arm, and I'm fully behind it.
Thank you, Councillor Eliason. Councillor Flynn.
Thank you. Could you just clarify, you started with some dates really quickly. What are the dates of the event?
Okay, so the actual dates are January 27th to February the 2nd, but we would want the center January 23rd for the setup.
So ice starts getting made by the ice makers and all that?
Yeah.
So the curling rink would not be utilized at all except for maybe?
The patch, the entertainment center, yeah.
Entertainment center. Okay.
What we'd like to do, sorry to interrupt, sorry.
That's all right, go ahead.
What we'd like to do with, since we'll have so many volunteers from like the leagues and stuff that will be helping out, we also want to jump on the bandwagon of this and promote curling and have people that have free curling come out and try it, because the ice will be free. Our leagues won't be using it during the day and such, so we'll have those people that will have instructors and stuff like that sort of like come out and learn how to curl, and I think that's going to be good too, for the whole community itself.
So obviously, having just had the other group here, and this is actually next year, the Silverbacks have worked already with the BCHL to deal with their scheduling?
Yeah, they have. They've kind of like mentioned that we're bidding for it, and they penciled it in.
Okay. So I guess my other question, and Brian, you can put your City of Enderby hat on here, but clearly it's not just the Silverbacks at that time of year that are using the main sheet. It's minor hockey and all of that. So I'm pretty sure you'll work with your group to get us lower rates for the arena there if we need to move teams. Yeah, I think we need to look at this region.
Yes, no, I appreciate that. I guess all we were looking for is maybe support, and then we'll let
details.
Your staff and your arena guy and our staff work it out. Yeah. The only thing, quickly I'll just say this, and I don't want to put any pressure, but, and I appreciate, we were kind of snuck in here because of our, Curl BC is kind of, the time is of the essence because they want to strike a committee, so whatever you can do, we sincerely appreciate it.
I wish Darby was still here, but, and I do understand again, with Lana here, you have talked to Economic Development and MRDT, and this is a perfect event for that type of funding, so, okay. Okay, I'm very much in support. Again, I just feel like even though it's 2020, the timing is, we got to get going.
Yeah, we do. And Curl BC has sort of given us the impression that if we get this, we'll probably have it again for the following year. So, yeah, because we've been so successful in hosting other events for them. They know what our volunteer base is like and what we can do here, and I think we really impressed them back just even hosting the Tim Hortons Nationals. We impressed the whole curling community with that, and that's because of the city of Salmon Arm and all its volunteers. So,
okay, thank you.
Well, one of the challenges that Curl BC has is finding host sites. Yeah. And we were surprised that there was actually another bid. So I guess what Darcy's saying, what they're alluding to, is if they fall out of bid a year from now and they don't have a host for this event, they would offer it to us again if there's no other hosts.
Thank you.
So when will Curl BC make the decision on whether seminar will be successful?
As soon as we get back to him with your answer.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. So we have a motion on the floor right now to write a letter of support. So I think just as we did with the last group and the RBC Cup, the corporate officer and I would contact you, assuming this motion goes forward, to put together a letter of support that would go with your package.
Okay, sounds good.
So just so council understands that. Councillor Flynn, did you want to add?
No, there's so many details that I think we'll just support in principle and wait and deal it with the rest.
Okay. Any other questions from council? All those in favor of the motion? It's carried unanimously. Thank you very much, gentlemen, and we will do our best to support and make it happen.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate it very much. Thank you.
All right, we're on item 14, council statements. Any councillor that has a statement, please just press your button. Councillor Eliason?
Just a quick update on what I'm able to speak about at my UBCM outreach meetings. We had 3 areas of concern. One was the housing, and we encouraged the government and the opposition to continue on with the affordable housing initiatives that they're doing. The second one was we wanted to see a blanket agreement for the hotel tax, or not hotel tax, for the short-term rentals, where they would provide a template like Vancouver has for Airbnb, and then small communities like ourselves would be able to opt in with business licenses and so on and so forth. And then the third one was the what's happening with the environment and just climate change, and we advocated for more funding for climate change initiatives, including stormwater and everything along those lines. So very productive meeting. I met with 10 MLAs directly, and went to a networking event where I met with most of the ministers and the premier and everyone, and advocated my best on behalf of Salmon Arm at that time. So just a quick update, and happy to inform you on any of those topics.
Thank you very much, Councillor Eliason. Appreciate that connecting. Any other councillor with council statements? Okay, seeing none, we will move on. Youth Council, great to have you back. Who is going to come speak to us today?
Good afternoon. My name is Blanca Stepankova, and I live at 7160 50th Street Northeast in Canoe.
And my name is Richard Jurassic. I live up in the Hillcrest area. So recently, we had a meeting with Kevin Pearson at our lunch hour session. I think this was last week, and we had a few interesting conversations. So we talked about the agricultural land reserve and how it can be kind of removed if it needs to be, and also how it's kind of designed by the province. These are kind of just some of the highlights we took away from it, or from myself. We also talked about the city limits and kind of how they're defined, and it was also interesting to hear about how Sorrento and Blind Bay are kind of thinking about in the future if they can split off into their own municipality. And then finally, we also went over kind of the North Canoe development plan, so the kind of the interesting thing about tonight's meeting. We talked about the blueprints and kind of how it's all designed and the steps, the processes it takes to get something like this going. And I'm sure everybody has their own opinions on it and stuff like that, but it was very interesting just in general to see how this kind of stuff takes place and the process it takes and how much time as well. So Blanca's going to touch a little bit more on that.
So yeah, our youth council has listened to a few presentations both inside and outside of council chambers about the mobile home park proposal in Canoe. And being a resident in Canoe for 16 years has made me kind of really think about this and formulate some opinions, but also think about the different effects that it could have in the community, both good and bad. So that I think many people, as well as I, recognize that this proposal has the intentions to help fulfill the demand of affordable housing, which is a recurring issue in BC. And I think that the proposal's location with its beachside accessibility and short distance from Salmon Arm is very practical as well. And through you, Your Worship, I would like to ask if any councillors who would like to speak on this would like to share their initial thoughts, like what they are on this proposal before the public hearing tonight, with regards to the affordable housing, the potential damage to the ecosystems in the development area, and also the potential property value changes for the surrounding neighbors.
Thanks, Monica, for your opinion and your question. Council probably at this time should not indicate any bias because we have to enter that public hearing this evening with an open mind.
Yes.
And so I'll have to let you know that you could attend the public hearing, and following the public hearing, then you'll hear council's decision at that time.
For sure.
I'll add on to a few more things. So we've started to email a few councillors and mayor about the kind of interviews that we're doing with the Student Youth Council. And recently I had my meeting with Councillor Lavery. It went very well. We actually got kicked out of Eco Treats before the meeting could end, but it was a very good talk. We talked about a bunch of interesting things that I had. Also, we are hoping that Councillor Cannon and the Chief Financial Officer or staff will be able to come and educate us students about the North Canoe development and just kind of the budget and all that. So we'll be in touch with those people. But other than that, if there's any questions for us.
Fair enough. Richard, was Councillor Lavery that loud in Echo Treats?
Yes, very, very. No, it was very good. We are actually, we were, I think they closed at 4 o'clock, but we stayed till 5. They were
Oh,
very
it was a
generous.
timing issue.
Yeah.
I see, okay. Councillors, do you have questions for our youth council members? I don't see any questions right now. Thank you very much for attending, first of all, and for being involved. Councillor Wallace-Richmond has a comment.
Thanks, Your Worship. I appreciate the question about the North Canoe development, and I don't know if you're planning on attending tonight. Oh, okay, great. So you'll see it all live and in person. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. We're at number 19, question and answer period. Is there anyone in the gallery who has a question for council that they'd like to ask? Okay, not at this time. Thank you. We will recess then until 7 o'clock. Thank you very much.